With the recently released Resident Evil Requiem becoming the fastest selling entry of the series in under a week, the Winter's Era games are far from the attention of the RE fanbase. Yeah, right now is probably not the best time to make a video about literally any other Resi game. I had finished writing the script for a review of Requiem before realizing that there's literally nothing I could add to the conversation, so who actually cares? Instead, I decided to make a video chronicling Ethan Winters and his this.
Fuck you crazy bitch!
This dude is a goddamn aura merchant, okay? When discussing badassery in Resident Evil, people always talk about Leon's one-liners and general reckless abandon, or Chris for doing this, which we will get to him, just wait. But for only starring in 2 games, Ethan has a decent selection of feats to choose from. To make things a little more fun, I'm going to be ranking his accomplishments on a tier list. Let's begin with his debut in Resident Evil 7, Biohazard. RE7 was a return to the horror-oriented gameplay of the older games. But just because there's less action doesn't mean there's no hyper aura moments. Right off the bat, Ethan proves that he's fucking insane by driving across the country to run around in the Louisiana wilderness surrounding a huge abandoned bayou house. I wouldn't know whether to fear the local wildlife or the local population more. He came all the way out here just to search for his wife Mia, who for all he knows is actually just dead and 6 feet under the ground right now and has been for years. I mean, she is alive, but he doesn't know that yet. Come on, you cannot deny it. One email from his dead wife, and Ethan is ready to trudge through the bayou wearing a fucking button up and slacks, stone cold. I don't care how many messages my dead wife sends me from beyond the grave. I'm not going anywhere near this shit. It's also really funny how he drove all the way over here to save Mia, but the second he finds her and she starts attacking him, he starts shooting with no hesitation. Ethan is perhaps most well known for being nonchalant to a fault, especially in RE7. Like at moments, he seems genuinely apathetic and unconcerned.
Oh shit, he's not eating it, Jack! He's not eating it!
Shut the hell up, Marguerite! Fuck you crazy bitch!
He has such mild reactions to all this shit. If he even reacts in the first place. Sometimes you wonder if he even cares. Crazy old woman turns into spider creature. He quips. You are not Leon Kennedy, you are an office worker. What are we doing?
I think I want a second opinion.
Hands and feet get sawed off and immediately reattached when you pour water on it. My god. I think that the best example of his nonchalance is also one of the first. I'm talking about when he first finds Mia locked up in a cage and she starts attacking him. Eventually she cuts his hand off with a chainsaw, to which he just picks it up and shoves it in his pocket. Later on, the same thing happens with Jack Baker and his foot. Jack's like, boy, I just poured that water on there. Okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore, but Jack tells him that he can reattach it by pouring this healing liquid on the wound. Ethan never once questions or even acknowledges this ever at any point throughout the entire game. He could be on the brink of death, but nah, just pour some liquid on your hand, it'll rub right out. And he's still like this in RE8 after everything that's happened to him. Well, I'm gonna put nonchalance in S tier. That's undeniably his greatest and most well-known feat. Limb reattachment could go in historical. Let's talk about some of his smaller accomplishments, such as asking a cop for his gun.
Hey, wait. You gotta give me your gun.
I don't think I need to explain this one. During one of the first few encounters with Jack, Ethan finds his car in the Baker's garage. He just gets in and starts driving it back and forth, slamming into Jack and the cop's corpse multiple times. Jesus Christ, this guy is on the roll. C tier's looking empty, so let's start grasping at straws. In the beginning of the game, he watches the tape where 3 guys actually just die in the house, but he continues exploring anyways, completely unbothered. C tier. Back to the big stuff. The chainsaw fight with Jack Baker is much more of what I'm looking for. Anytime a Resident Evil game lets you have a chainsaw, it's gonna be hype. When Jack gets knocked down to his knees and you just drill into him with the chainsaw, it's so satisfying. I'm just gonna group all the rest of the mini bosses and the main bosses, except for one, into one point for the sake of the video. It's not that they're lame or anything like that. I am putting them in the hype tier. It's just that there's nothing crazy that jumps out at me that can separate these from the rest. It's just the fact that this normal ass dude is completely stone cold running around killing these monsters in some rundown house in the middle of nowhere in Louisiana. This doesn't really fall under the umbrella of feats, but I want to count it anyways. The choice between curing Mia or curing Zoe is so funny to me, no matter which one you choose. Obviously, the canon route is choosing to save Mia, which Zoe gets really mad at for some reason. Like, say what you want about Mia and her being with the connections and hiding all that stuff from Ethan, but this dude loves his wife. The entire reason he is here is to save her, despite her being dead for 3 years. And then Zoe's actually butthurt that she didn't get picked over that. Picking Zoe is funny for the exact same reason. Ethan comes all this way way and goes through all of this shit just to save Mia, but then last minute decides to save Zoe instead. And as anyone who actually chose this route would know, this is the bad ending, because not only does Zoe just immediately die after this, but you still have to play through that boat section as Mia. But then you just actually kill her as Ethan, so it's like, what was the point of coming here in the first place? The final fight against Evelyn is pretty easy. Like, it almost feels scripted in a way, but this is undeniably S tier. You guys are gonna be sick of me saying this by the end of the video, but Ethan is just a guy, and he was able to defeat this incredibly dangerous bioweapon. Okay, yes, Ethan is made out of mold, and yes, he can reattach his limbs with hydrogen peroxide from Walgreens, but he doesn't know that yet. He has no military or weapons or training in general to speak of. This dude was an office worker. He sat at a desk all day. All he wanted to do was save his wife and kill the little ghost girl, and he did it. He did it. RE8 starts with Chris Redfield destroying Ethan's home and killing his wife and kidnapping his baby.
Chris? What the hell?
Sorry, Ethan.
No!
I'd like to introduce you to the Redfield Mog tier. I don't blame Chris for wanting to start off strong after his last appearance was...
I'm Redfield.
Not fucking him, that's for sure. But yeah, this is an unfortunate and rare massive L for Ethan. Sorry Ethan and Ethan no are just crazy to say after doing all this. Check out Ethan's reaction too.
What? Why?
He's still trying to be nonchalant about it. You know, in case Mia's still alive there and watching this whole thing. He actually gets bitched out by Chris a couple times. We'll get there when we get there. Not long after entering the village, Ethan runs into this girl and her father who's been hurt. They introduce him to the rest of the survivors and oops, looks like everyone's dead. I literally promise you that Ethan could have pulled out his gun and fired mere frames after this guy started tweaking. You know, I'll give him that when the place was burning down and the daughter was like, just go, just leave me. There was nothing he could do. She chose to die right there. Much like Ethan chose to do nothing when this dude started seizing out and turning into a creature. Okay, I realize I'm just chatting right now. Don't take it so seriously, but still, not cool, Ethan. This next one isn't a feat at all, but it is really funny. When he escapes Heisenberg's trap and ends up in Dimitrescu's castle, Ethan gets captured by the daughters. He gets chained up on the wall and like inspected by Lady D and her daughters. I already know some of you Resident Evil fanboys would pay to be in this position. Throughout the castle, Ethan tackles some pretty light puzzle solving in Lady D's 3 daughters. It's a fairly small area and none of the enemies are particularly difficult. It makes sense since this is the first of 4 main sections in the game that things wouldn't be getting crazy yet. Since nothing too spectacular happens here, I'm just going to count the castle section itself as one big point, C tier. It gets much nuttier than this. The actual boss fight against Lady Dimitrescu is a big step up. This is insane on your first playthrough. Who would have thought that the 10-foot tall vampire Dami Mommy waifu, my god, I wrote that, could turn into this? It always reminded me of like a fucked up version of the fat one from How to Train Your Dragon. Placing this one was a little tough for me, because like I said, on your first playthrough, it really is like a holy shit moment. But after replaying it for the 3rd time and looking back objectively, I think that relative to the other bosses in the game, this one just has to end up as C tier. Moving on to Beneviento's creepy dollhouse, Ethan solves a much more intricate puzzle in the basement, running back and forth between every room, disassembling a mannequin to find clues and key items. This is some pure Resident Evil shit, especially when all the lights go out and this horrible monster starts chasing him around. He's got to hide in these tiny closets. This is the only part of the game I dread when replaying. I hate being chased by things and having to hide while they crawl around the room trying to sniff you out. It's very counterintuitive, but that's exactly why horror is one of my favorite video game genres. I'm very susceptible to this stuff. The monster mimics a crying baby to try and lure Ethan out, which is just a slimy rotten cherry on top of the dookie cake that this is. He doesn't fall for it, of course. He stays locked in and makes it out of the basement. This is Aura. Oh, and after this he plays hide and seek with a gross floating doll and stabs it in the head with scissors, which is really funny but not enough to count as anything in this discussion. Next, Moreau is this disgusting fish freak who lives in the reservoir outside the village. Ethan just walks up and grabs the flask right in front of him. Screw it, this gets a mini point on the board for being funny. I'll let it slide because we have another Redfield Mog coming up. It's made even worse by the fact that Chris doesn't even do anything here. Ethan gets thrown on the ground by one of Chris's men while he just leans on the wall like he didn't even realize that this is happening. So yeah, sadly, we're gonna have to add another point to the Redfield Mog tier. Any further aura loss is negated when a huge mutated fish comes in and destroys everything. Before I get to the next point, I just want to say that I do kind of love this game a lot, and I am not hating when I say this, but this section is nothing in the grand scheme of things. He's just turning windmills on. Compared to the sections right before and directly after this, I'm not going to act like this is anything special. The actual boss fight is pretty cool though. A gigantic walking fish covered in eyes that vomits acid that rains from the sky, and his weak point is in the mouth that has like 17 lips. This is the hype that I was expecting from Ethan Winters. Leading up to and even during his exploration of Heisenberg's factory, Ethan fights hordes of enemies, sometimes one after another with huge mini-bosses in between. Inside the factory, he has encounters with the soldats, I think is how it's pronounced. Some of the strongest enemies in the game, and every time they show up, they have more and more armor on, guarding their weak points. And then the fight with this guy, who's just a giant industrial fan with legs. Yeah, this is a historical showing by Ethan. This one guy, who once again, is literally just a guy. Not some highly trained anti-bioterrorism agent, just a systems engineer, is able to kill all of these highly engineered bioweapons created solely for killing. This is like fucking Hong Kong 97, wipe out all 1.2 billion.
You don't fuck with Chin!
And before we even get into the Heisenberg fight, I still have 2 points from the factory that I have to bring up. The first is actually from the very beginning of this section. Heisenberg offers to work together with Ethan and use Rose to destroy Miranda. Of course, Ethan denies this, but the way he does it is so cold. Heisenberg literally has Ethan's life in his hands, holding him over a trap door with the fan guy waiting underneath. Ethan said, "I'll take my chances and let's go himself." My god! This is S! It doesn't end there though. We almost get another instance of Redfield Mog, but this is actually a Redfield redemption. They have a little bro moment and resolve to destroy Miranda and save Rose. Hype and aura. The actual Heisenberg fight? Before I even get into it, we already know this is another historical moment. I mean, first off, he's driving around this steampunk mech suit thing, non-stop firing bullets and launching rockets. But then when he gets knocked out of the robot, he doesn't even care. He continues the fight on foot with the guns that he had on him and wins. The only thing stopping this from being S tier is the fact that he does kind of die when Miranda comes and tears his still beating heart out. But yeah, he already died once and came back. Of course he's gonna do it again. This is an S tier feat. At the end of the Chris section, when Mia's like, "You don't know how special he is," and then cut back to Ethan waking up in some weird purgatory realm where Evelyn tells him the truth about his insane regeneration. And then when he wakes back up in the real world, he immediately tells the Duke to just take him straight to Miranda. And Duke said they're already on the way. Whatever, dude. Duke clutched here. Who even cares? And what even is there to say about the final fight against Miranda and Ethan's ultimate sacrifice? He drops some cold one-liners during the final battle, and you can feel it when he says goodbye to Rose for the last time. I think the epitaph on his grave says it best. Ethan was a kind husband and loving father who put family above all else. The main point of this was just to remind everyone that Ethan Winters deserves some major respect put on his name. Here's the final tier list, by the way. All of this accomplished in like 3 or 4 years, but even Capcom forgets about him sometimes. Like, what? Does Ada even count as a protagonist? I don't know, I never played RE6.